Oregon's going to speak today, their head coach. They are brash. They're coming in to the league with a statement. They are Oregon.
Swag.
Jesus.
Even he roots for Oregon now.
Is this going to be a media thing too?
Why do you say that?
James was cocky.
Yeah, he was.
Wow.
Like if they go 8-4, well, pretty much the entire team has to come down with COVID for the season.
Apparently, he's going to make a tackle.
And good insight. Damn. The program's cocky. The media are cocky. Who the hell they think they are? Nebraska 2011? Nebraska 2024. So some of the better stuff yesterday from the head coach wasn't at the main podium, wasn't on McAfee. He slipped some things in. He talked about recruiting, but he wasn't mentioning any names in his class of 25. He's going to mention a lot of names if they have a monster kickback for their weekend they have upcoming for recruiting.
The barbecue.
Yeah, but I mean.
Oh, yeah. 5-star offensive lineman?
Well, the one that is confirmed that's bigger is Michael Terry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as well. Yes. Yeah. I mean, if all of that comes together, yeah. Huge.
So that's this weekend. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So I've said this. Rhule likes to consume a lot of stuff about his program. Scott didn't want to hear in the outside noise. Like Matt Rhule likes reading and listening to stuff that is said about his program. He does. It says he's at a place that it hasn't happened before, but he's just very curious about what other people say. So last week when the Frank Solich throwback uniform started to show up in the stores and people thought that was Nebraska's throwback, Rhule's on Twitter. Rhule has got lists. Like he is on lists of like Nebraska Husker stuff. So he saw that. And if you think I'm crazy, did you catch this nugget with a smile on his face at the end of his media time yesterday in Indianapolis? So
did he later?
No, that was it. He was done. He left and got on a plane and flew back to Nebraska.
He's good. Listener Matt.
He is. He isn't. That's
so he did that. I mean, they have a uniform this year, but he did that quite sarcastic.
This is what I maybe refreshing is the best way to say it, of someone who can have fun with those things. That we all get worked up about it, getting into those conversations, but everything that involves your football program, I feel best serves you if, as much as you interact with the media, that nothing takes you by surprise. There's nothing that is going to catch you off guard. And so to me, all of little things like that where you're having fun with it. There was something he said last year where it was something that we had been talking about. And now I'm totally blanking this, where we thought, oh yeah, he's definitely tuned into the narrative, what the media conversation is, where he acknowledged certain things being said about the program or being said about players, and it wasn't like he was being critical towards the media, but it was something that I know you and I had talked about as well, where we're like, damn, nothing gets by this guy as far as what is being talked about, what's being written about. We know how many people cover this football program, and the different odds and ends of that. Different people are going to look at the program and what they're doing, what they're not doing, and have different conversations about it. I just don't think anything takes him off guard when it comes to what is being said about his football program.
He likes being a football coach in Nebraska. Isn't that refreshing? I mean, it's not for everybody, and it'll age you, and you have to be prepared for it. Scott wasn't prepared to be the football coach at Nebraska at this stage in his career. Matt Rhule has been around the block a little bit. He's got a little bit of seasoning, and his DNA is a little bit better. But not everybody enjoys being a football coach in Nebraska. They love the paycheck. They love that they're head coach at Nebraska. Yeah. But man, that job ages you. That job takes the life out of you. It If you let it consume you,
Right.
it'll suck the life out of you. And all of a sudden you look like you've aged, like you're Obama when he was in the White House, or you just lose the fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to learn how to manage that job because it is a Fortune 500 company. And it is refreshing to see a guy that enjoys being the head coach at Nebraska. And trust me, they went 5-7 last year. And there's some angst. First year, the problems. But he just, every single time, he embraces where he is at, and it's authentic that he wants to be here.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have one foot out the door, or he only got this job, because, some other guy turned it down. Yeah. There's a part of when it's the only show in town, and that program means so many things to so many people, that the guy that's in charge always gives off the impression that he's one of you and he wants to be here. And that's what Rhule does. For people that didn't hear it in the stream, so Rhule at the end of his podium session, Keith Mann, who, he looks awkward in a suit as well. Like, there's people that don't wear suits. All of a sudden on that day you make them wear suits. It looks bad. Not bad.
But can you make it look good? They all made it look good.
No, Rhule looked so uncomfortable in a suit. So Rhule at the end of his session, of his podium session, after his hour was up and he was done for the day, Keith said, all right, thank you. And Rhule said, I didn't get to talk about the alternate uniforms. Mm-hmm. And as he was getting up, he goes, well, I'll talk about them another time.
With a smirk. Okay, so when there was the whole conversation that was being had around Scott Frost of, if he can't do it, who can? And I always knew that to be completely untrue, that there's always going to be someone out there who's going to be a fit for that. Now, when it came to, okay, what type of outsider could make that work, it never occurred to me until what you see. And again, we don't know if this hasn't, from a win-loss standpoint, hasn't, quote, worked yet. But I think there's a lot of confidence behind that. There should be. We mentioned Matt Rhule as a guy who's a kind of a football nerd. And you brought up something that I think I probably even failed to consider when it came to who would be the ideal candidate to have that longevity at Nebraska. And it's someone who just says, I don't look at those pressures as this big burden, or the amount of access that the media and the fans want on this program as this really annoying burden. I think it's pretty cool because I'm a football nerd. Like, how many times does he talk about, compared to Temple and Baylor, trying to get them to that ultimate goal of winning it all, especially Baylor, but having walked by 5 national championships? Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny what they were talking about of, it's not the, hey, I'm trying to do this for you. It's the school saying, hey, when are you going to give us another one of these things? Yeah, but he just seems to be legitimately geeked out by the tradition, the history that Nebraska football has had. I think he finds it very cool that people care so much about this football program in the state. So I think he feels ultimately connected to them. I never thought that would be a quality that would be that, quote, ideal fit if, the golden child couldn't do it, that you would have to find someone that was going to be very unique. But what Matt Rhule has as a leader in college football where there's so much pressure on it, I think what he does have is very rare when it comes to that approach to a place like this. It was going to take something very unique. I just didn't know what that unique quality would be until we've watched it play out in front of us, like Matt Rhule, as far as his connection to this program. I think you're right. I think it's as simple as he just really likes this job. He likes this job here at Nebraska. And I always thought it'd be maybe the up-and-coming type of guy that could somehow block out the noise and just be the football guy. But he's, in a way, gone the exact opposite of blocking out the noise.
I think there's another thing here. There have been some coaches in that role, post-Solich, that came to Nebraska, and I thought they acted like they were doing the fans of Nebraska a favor by being their head football coach.
Yep.
I can tell you, after the just awful setup in Carolina and the on-field stuff, the Nebraska fans are doing Matt Rhule a favor. I think that's a difference.
Mm.
He doesn't say, I'm doing you a favor. You're doing me a favor. And so there's where the obligation to make this work comes from.
Yep.
Like sooner than later, so that you don't let down people. Just an interesting contrast from previous head coaches at Nebraska.
I think he believes it too. I really do. It's one thing to say, but I think when he always talks about the fans, he feels the obligation to not only for the players, and he talks about how much he loves, especially this team, but that obligation to the fans because they've been so supportive. They've been through a lot, even when he wasn't here. That I think that's genuine. I know people can look at him and be like, well, what else is he going to say? Well, you don't have to say it as much. And he says it any chance he gets.